Hello and welcome to another edition of A Lot of Help with James Lott Jr. I'm James Lott Jr. And we're here to help you get your mind, body, and spirit in the right places it needs to be. So I bring on guests all the time who have ideas and suggestions and invite you to look at way things may be a little differently than you may normally do yourself. Always here to help you become the best you, to be the best you of you, right? And this book I got to read called "A Higher Self Yoga, a Practical Teaching." I want to make sure I get her bio correct, folks. 40 years, this award-winning author has served as the leading voice on the teachings of the higher self. She has published dozens of books that combine spiritual study and psychology practice to form the foundational canon of higher self yoga. In addition, Nanette is a founder and president emeritus of the Higher Self Yoga organization. We'll tell you where you can find it and all that kind of stuff at the end of the show. Help me welcome Nanette. Hello, Miss Nanette.
Hello, thanks for having me here. I look forward to talking to you.
Same here. So I always ask this question first when I talk to people who, like myself, are out there to help others. How are you today?
I feel very good. Thank you. Feel very good. I'm back in my beautiful home. I live on a lake in Massachusetts, and it's just beautiful here. And I was in Florida, but I'm back now looking at my beautiful lake.
Oh, that sounds very nice. I like being near water. I live by the beach. It's in LA, so I love being by water. I have a connection to water. I've always had that. So whenever I lived further inland, I'm like, where's the water? Like, where's the water?
Yeah.
So I like that.
I have the same thing. Most definitely have the same thing.
See, I like that. Okay, congratulations on the book. First of all, writing a book for folks is not you just wake up and write a book. Like, these things take time. They take all kinds of energy. What you're going to say. But before I would ask you all the stuff in the books, we'll talk about that and for sure. Most self-help practices begin with yourself. I know, it sounds funny, folks, right? But I'm gonna ask you this question because I'm really curious what you have to say about this. But everything requires you to look within yourself. Mm-hmm. Because one of your processes is about assessment, prescription, action, which I love that. I love that. It's like going in there, see what's going on, how can we kind of work this out, and then doing it. But it requires a person who's watching the show or listening to it. Okay, as we begin, you have to look within yourself. In the book, you have different exercises and stuff. How do you get folks to look inside themselves? That's usually the hardest thing, isn't it? To begin is looking at yourself. Have you found it to be an interesting thing for you in your practice?
Well, one of the things that I'm going to talk a little bit about the higher self first.
Okay, please do.
It's going to help you look inside yourself. And a lot of my books are about the higher self, including this one. So the higher self, first of all, you have an ego self. Your ego self is what you use in the world, you function in the world. And you have a lower self, which is all the negative, nasty things you do sometimes. And then you have a higher self. And the higher self is all your positive qualities. But the higher self also is a spiritual part of you that is connected to the source, whatever you feel the source is. And it has the part in you that can love unconditionally and have compassion for others, which certainly we need nowadays in this world.
Yes.
And it also has the wisdom. It's like we also call it the wise being within us. It's discernment. It has where your inspiration and creativity is in the higher self, and which we use in our daily lives. And I'll go more into that in terms of using that with also the mind and the heart and all of that.
Yes.
So, but the higher self also, and this is what most people don't understand, it knows you completely. It knows who you are. It knows everything about you psychologically. It knows what your mundane problems are. It can help you with all of this. And people don't know that. This is one of the reasons I did the practical teaching of higher self, because it's a very practical part of you that can help you, not just for all the beautiful qualities, but can help you look at yourself and understand who you are. And part of its purpose as part of yourself is to grow in terms of growing spiritually, is to really be aware of who you are, to really start to understand your personality, to understand your negative characteristics, to understand your positive ones that you can enhance. It has all of this beautiful ability to be able to help you. It knows you, but no one uses it for that purpose. They don't understand that. Actually, the higher self is a very old concept, hundreds of years old. It's in the Eastern yogas, but the part that's in the Eastern yogas is only the spiritual part, which is very important, very, very important, the positive part, but they don't work with the fact that it also is so practical, it can help you. So the reason I wrote this book is to just look at all the things that you need to understand about yourself. Who are you? What are your values? What do you love in your life? What gives you joy? What gives you beauty? You know, all the positive things. And also to look at what does it hold you back? What stops you from knowing who you are? What stops you from really believing in yourself? So that was the main reason why I wrote this book, and to get people to everybody, not just to yogas. I mean, the book talks about yoga, it talks about being a yogi, and yoga basically means a union with God. That's what the definition of the word is union with God. But it's a lot more than that too. So that's, it's to have that union with God or to grow spiritually, no matter what your religion is, no matter what it is, to grow spiritually, you need to understand yourself. Really got to understand who you are completely with non-judgmentalness, non-criticalness, to really look at who you are and see, this is what I need to change. This is what I love about myself. I need to really develop more. So this is where I'm working with the higher self right now.
Everything you're saying, I agree with. I believe in it. I agree with it. I feel like any changes I made in my life, began with me looking at assessing. And so it goes back to my question, kind of. I'm just curious. So this is a book's going to help you get there, but I'm just saying that a lot of folks are afraid to do that at the beginning at first, to look at themselves fully. Now, I found that that's sometimes the challenge for me as a coach. I mean, we get there, but I'm just wondering for you, same thing. Have you found that to be also kind of the case of, it seems like it's scary for some folks to actually look at yourself honestly. But as you said, it's key, which I agree with you, to breakthroughs. You have to look at yourself, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, as a I'm a psychotherapist also.
There you go. Yes.
And that the main problem I find with a lot of people is feelings of worthiness. And that's one of the reasons why they can't look at themselves, because they do look at themselves, they think they're not good enough. They can't do things. They're not good enough. All the negative things that they have all these positive things. And it's just childhood conditioning, how they were treated, how they were brought up. And I also believe in past lives is what they came in with too, in terms of who they are. So it's about really acknowledging who you are in all its forms and doing so. But it takes time. You're right. People are afraid to do that because they're afraid to see the negative. They think of themselves as being negative, and they criticize themselves. They say, well, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. So, I'm sure you have the same thing in coaching.
Yeah.
You have to get them through that feeling of self-criticism to start to say, look at who you really are. You're more than that. You're more than this failure. You're more than unworthy. You're more than all those things that you feel you are. You have some beautiful things within yourself. So it's about acknowledging all that at the same time as looking at the things you want to change.
That's why one of the things I like about your book was, let's acknowledge everything. Let's take the judgment out, which is a big thing, period, folks. We will judge ourselves harder than anybody else can, right? Anybody can say words to you and hurt you, but we hurt ourselves more, don't we, than anybody else can even try. It's amazing the things we'll say to ourselves and the things that we'll censor ourselves. And that's why I like what your book is. Your book's like, okay, here's some practical. That's what I found to be very practical. Very practical, easy to read, folks. It's nothing. She's not using gigantic words and phrases that are, outrageous. But the book is very nice and easy to read, easy to follow, section by section. So I'm sure that was a conscious effort, correct, on your part through this book?
Yeah, one of the things I always do in books is to tell stories.
Yeah.
The book is full of stories to illustrate the text, so it makes it easier to understand what we're talking about. And then, of course, I have all the exercises and the exercises with the higher self. But I also have at the end of the book the actual higher self exercises that you can do to get in touch with your higher self.
Yes.
And I think people need to really do that first, so they can start to realize that you do have this really wise being within them. And knowing that they have this wise being also helps them get over these feelings of not being good enough. Yeah, once you start working with this part of you, you say, this is really a part of me, because it understands so much. And when you start to feel that, you start to say, well, maybe I'm not so unworthy. Maybe I can do this. Maybe there is things in my life that I can pursue and be successful at.
I think you said something earlier that completely is true. And you don't need my validation because we all know it's true. I'm just saying, it's completely true. Childhood conditioning. Mention it briefly. And that is something that's the voices, the clutter. Some people call it white noise, clutter, whatever words you want to use. It's in your brain. And what you just said right now, which was so beautiful, people don't realize how much they block themselves. The answer isn't, I tell you, well, as a coach, I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to help guide you to where I have exercise and things to help you get, but it's all inside. The answers are in there, right? We have to kind of dig to get them, knock down those blocks and walls and chop get the machete out and just like clear the brush. That's what we got to do, right, Nanette?
Yeah, and the higher self is there to help you. I mean, and that's the part, and can tell you what to do. This is what I want to work on. This is a trait that I want to change. How do I do that? So you ask your higher self, what is my first step in doing this? What is my first step? Just one little step. So you do that one step, and then you say, what's my next step? And as you start to change a little bit and start to be aware, it's really not difficult to change. It's not difficult to change. One of the things I tell people to do is to do a nightly review. Say you're working on a negative trait that you want to change. Say you're judgmental and you judge yourself and you judge others. See, that's a trait you're working on. So at the end of the day, or even in the middle of the day, at the end of the day, you go through the day and say, okay, let me look through the day. Was I judgmental about myself in any way? Was I judgmental about somebody I was talking to? Did I do any of that? And then why did I do that? What makes me want to do that? Right. Then you can look and say, did I have anybody in my life that did that to me? Did my parents do this to me? Did I have a sibling that made me feel this way? So you start to get to the root cause of these things that you're working on. And once you get to that, you say, I don't need to carry this anymore. I don't need to have, what is it doing for me? It's not helping me. So then you start to check yourself during the day. You do it in the evening, but say at the midday, say, this morning, did I do anything? Was I judgmental? And then you get to the point where you stop your thinking. You stop yourself doing it. And you replace it with something that's positive, a positive thought. I'm feeling this about myself. I'm really, not focused. I'm not doing something. Yeah, but I can be focused a lot. I can just stop right now, link with my heart, and be focused. I'm doing that right now. So you in little increments. You don't change something in big blooms. It has to be small steps along the way, and you can do it. Anybody can do it.
Yes, my book is called Small Steps Lead to Large Rewards. I'm a huge believer in that. Huge believer. Just start. It doesn't have to be this huge leap. I mean, I always tell people, it took you years to get here. So it'll take you some time to get out of here. I mean, like, you know, I mean, like, it's going to take some time, you know, if you truly are working on yourself, right? If you truly got her book and you're truly going through this stuff, like, it's going to take you some time. I almost be a little nervous if it happened overnight. It'd be a little weird. I mean, like, I want to make sure you're really, and I'm sure Nanette wants to make sure you're really looking in there and doing the work. I know I have a thing where I tell people, you know, let's take your bad habits, in air quotes, and turn them into good ones. Because that's why I like what your book too. You're like, let's acknowledge the negative stuff. Let's not run from it. Let's not get scared of it. Let's not acknowledge it, but let's just talk about it. Like, okay, so yeah, you know, sometimes I'm really shady. I'm out there and I'm talking crap about all kinds of people because I feel like it. You know, like that's not good. It's not bringing me any value. I don't feel good afterwards, but I keep doing it. So at least you're not, but I don't have to judge myself. I'm just going, well, I do that. So I want to stop doing that. I mean, it's not really good. So it's not really a judgment. It's just kind of like, well, you know, I do that. Or there's sometimes I just shut down when someone raises their voice or when someone looks at me a certain way or something triggers me. And then, like you said, then you can begin the process of going, oh, my parents used to fight this certain way. I saw it all the time.
Definitely.
Now I carry that with me. So that's why I like what you think about. Let's talk about the negative stuff. Let's bring it out. Let's bring it all out in the open, everybody. Let's not make it the thing in the closet or a thing that's way back there. Let's bring it all out so you could actually deal with it. I love that, Nanette. I do.
Mm-hmm. I do. Also, I mean, I don't know if you believe in past lives, but I certainly do in terms of reincarnation. And I find that with some people, they come in with the whole victim thing. They were been a victim in a past lifetime, and they come in and they start to play out that same role of being a victim and adhering to it. So it's about starting to understand not just what happens to you in your childhood, but to also understand what you brought in with you that's causing you to continue this pattern and start to look at breaking that pattern. You don't want to carry it on. You want to get rid of it. You don't want to make yourself a victim throughout your life and follow that pattern of meeting people and being a victim with the people, because that's what you're bringing in, that you're trying to, I guess, pay off karma. You don't have to do that. You can break that by understanding, I don't need to do this anymore.
Well, because you also talk about, because this is another thing too, you know, higher self and higher self can actually help heal past traumas, can it?
Yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I tell people it can. There are things that are done to you or around you or with you or however that is. Doing all these exercises and looking into stuff actually help you get past that and find a place for it. I always say, for me, anything that's happened in my life, and I'm sure you too in your life, you just want to find places for it. You know, I don't need it ever present right in front of me, stopping me from doing stuff. But like, okay, yeah, I mean, life can be ugly sometimes. Life can be messy and dirty and unfair and all those words you want to use. It can happen. And I've had some things and things still in my life that are like not as much fair. But I don't want to live on them. And I don't want, and I think most people don't want to either. Not really. When they deep down look at it, right? They don't want to.
If you hold on to it all the time, it's just gonna, you'll keep coming back to you all the time. So it's about letting go of that and saying, okay, this happened to me. I can let it go, because something beautiful also happened to me. I can dwell on what's beautiful that happened to me, that's good in my life. The problem is most people dwell on what's negative that happens to them instead of really looking around them. To me, looking around at beauty. I'm looking at this beautiful lake over here, looking around, or that plant back there. You know, I find beauty is so important for people to bring into their lives. And just when you're going through a sad time or a time that is difficult, just to get out in nature and commune with nature and feel the beauty of it and realize can come into your own heart and make you feel so much better. Or listen to beautiful music or great, any kind of music that you love. It's like, I think, if I don't remember the name of the man, he's gone by now, but I'll probably come to me in a few minutes because I'm old.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I understand, girl. I understand. I understand.
He was diagnosed with cancer and had 6 months to live. So what he did was he sat down, he watched fun movies. He watched beautiful things and fun movies and didn't pay any attention to his health and just laughed and had a good time. And he lived another 10 years.
No, no, there
But
you go.
he wasn't sort of succumb to the fact that he was dying and get into the melroseness of all of that.
My I had a friend, Bernadette. I'll give you a little shout out. They told her she had stage 4 colon, liver, all these cancers, like there's a bunch of them. And they told her, well, you'll be gone. And I mean, the doctors were very just blunt. They're like, you'll be gone in a couple of months, probably. Well, she was like, well, I'm gonna live my life still as much as I can. And she lived 2 years longer.
Mhm.
So it's funny you said that. I'm like, she did the same thing. Her attitude was so admirable. I was like, I don't know where you get this from, girl. I mean, it's supposed to be her higher self or something. I was like, how are you facing this stuff? We go visit her and talk to her and just spirits high. And yeah, things start getting limited after a while, but she didn't let her stop her. She still was going out and doing things. And she literally defied. I think sometimes Western medicine relies too much on just what they think they see, and that's it. There's more, folks. Nanette and I both know there's more. And you just gave an example. I just gave an example. That's why books like this are important, just because my mom had breast cancer during the pandemic. But I mean, completely, they she had a lumpectomy. She might be telling the story. We talk about it. So far, she had a positive attitude, looked within herself, did the work. It just happened. All the cancer was just in the lumps in both her breasts. They did a lumpectomy. She didn't even need chemo. She's cancer-free 2 years now. So it's like, I think there's something to be said about doing stuff like higher self and looking with yourself and looking at everything and kind of clearing out the dead weight, the dead brush, right? You know, there's something about that does affect you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and the more you work with that not only does it make you feel better about yourself, but it makes you understand others better. In other words, you're not as judgmental of other people. You really can start to work with your heart and listen to people from the heart, which is very important to do.
Yeah, we need a lot more empathy these days. People are empathetic to other people's plights. I think nowadays, especially, I feel like we're all basically kind of the same. We all want the same 5 or 6 things in life. I always say it all the time. It's just we may have different ways of going about it, or different cultural things, or generational things. But we all like food. We all like relationships. We all like love. We all like being heard. There's certain things we all want: a place to live, that kind of stuff. So I just feel like if we can all get there, we understand that we're all got a lot of sameness in our lives. We probably do a lot better. That's just me, Nanette. It's just me. I just feel like we could do a lot better if we did realize that you and I may not be that much different in what we want and what we enjoy. You know, I mean, look a little differently, and you know what I mean. Like you know, obviously are twins, but you know what I mean. Like I'm sure if they polled you and I, we like certain foods, we like certain music. So I mean, it'd be similar, and it's like that's kind of the point. And that's why I like books like this, because it's like, let's get to a place that's above all the chatter, above all the stuff we add on, right?
Yeah. And it doesn't matter what religion you are, what race you are, what culture you come from. It's just like you're saying, everybody has everybody has a higher self. Everybody has an ego self. Everybody has a lower self. It's how you use them, how you change them, how you grow spiritually. Everybody has that within themselves, and the need to do that within themselves.
Yeah.
But a lot of people don't listen to that, don't listen to the beautiful parts in themselves that they need to work with and grow.
Now you mentioned a word, because I want to ask you, I've never actually heard this word before. So I've heard other variations of the word, but I've never heard this word before. Disidentify. So please explain that. I have my little dog. I saw a dog eat your book, but I mean, there's certain things I would ask. But I would want to ask about that. I want. Can you talk about that, please?
Yeah, there's a whole chapter about it.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
The disidentify is disidentifying from your emotions in a situation. In other words, it's not being passive. It's not being not connected when you're in a situation. That's why it's a good word, because other words don't describe it. It's disidentifying the emotions that you carry with you. Say you're in a situation where people are starting to argue or starting to talk about something with a lot of emotion. If you could just link with your heart and not be emotional, not be in your own emotions and your own judgmental thinking, letting go of all that and just listen with the heart, you'll be focused on what's really being said. You can really hear things more clearly. It gives you an understanding of what's happening, so that then you can be part of that conversation, but coming from a place that is whole, that's centered, not emotional or charged or have any of those things clouding it. So it's about really working with the heart when you do that, because when you work with the heart, you're also connected to the higher self. And the one thing the higher self, when you can get into the higher self, what you'll feel is this wonderful sense of peace and calmness. It's like you're in a place that is devoid of all the things that push you down and change you and want you to move forward or backwards or inside out. It puts you in a place of total calmness so that you can see things with a clarity and understanding.
You also mentioned in the book, and thanks for doing it, because I like that word too. I just never heard, I never heard before. And when you explained it, I was like, oh, okay, it's like you're still present, you're still in it. It's a certain way of doing it. Okay. You also mentioned in the book, this is something very important because I've had this discussion with people, being aware of others while you're going through your spiritual practice. Because some folks go through the route of like, they're so gung-ho and excited, they become preachy and they're out there like, oh my God, you should do this and all that other stuff. But there's a chapter in your book about that. I thought it was interesting you actually put this in the book. You're talking about that. So let's about that for a second too, about this, while you're going through your spiritual practice, how it may affect others, I guess, and how that affects other people.
Oh yeah. People that are doing that, and they get into what we call the spiritual subpersonality.
Yes.
It's not really spiritual. It's into their spiritual subpersonality. It's like the old priest and nun in the old days in the monasteries that were fanatical. You said, this is the way you really need to do this. It will help you. This is because it's helping me, but you don't put it in a way that's coming from the heart. You're saying it's coming from your need to make them do what you are doing. It's, it's that old control need of wanting the mother superior making you do what you need to do. So
that's so true. You're speaking to the ex-Catholic in me right now. You're speaking to it right now. That's so funny. What is one thing about this book you would want people to take away? That's one. There's many things we want to take away, obviously, but what is one thing especially you would like readers to take away from your practical book?
Well, the main thing is for them to have started to work with their higher selves. I don't care. I mean, the book is about yoga, but I don't care about that. It's about everyone, no matter what their religion, whatever their ethnic background, and whatever their gender preference. It's about everybody starting to work with their higher selves and realize it's something that can help them in their very everyday life, in their work. I mean, when I used to be an art director. When I was an art director, I would go into meetings and connect with my higher self. And I found it helped me so much in working with people because I could hear it differently. Again, it's not my own opinions coming in and trying to cloud things up. So it's about relationships. It's about, when you have a relationship with somebody, and you have a difficulty in that relationship, how do you work through that difficulty? You have to be able to mirror that person and understand what the person is feeling themselves. Because if you don't understand what they're feeling, you're not going to understand what you need to say to them to reach them, to reach out and embrace them in a way. So it's not about you. It's about and I say this, it's really true. I read it's about when you love yourself. And I don't mean being narcissistic. I mean, when you accept yourself and love yourself, then you can love others. There's a book I read so many years ago. It was by Eric Fromm, very famous psychologist. It's called The Art of Loving.
Oh, wow.
And he talks about, if you haven't had love in your childhood, you haven't been loved, it's hard for you to love yourself.
Yeah.
And so it's about loving yourself, the good and the bad in yourself. I mean, just accepting and loving yourself. This is who I am, and I can be better, and sometimes I won't be better.
Yep.
But I accept who I am. Sometimes I make mistakes, but I'm not perfect. I find as a therapist, one of the problems I had, and even as a teacher, is people are so perfectionistic. They feel they have to be perfect. And that perfectionism stops them because they can never accept doing something and just doing it. It's got to be better. You can do the best job in the world. And somebody's going to say, well, it could have been better.
Yes.
That's crazy. And it keeps somebody from not only accepting themselves and loving themselves because they feel they're not good enough. They're not perfect. And boy, I really work with students on that. It's definitely a very strong trait in a lot of people.
Well, in Hollywood, where I work, it's a big trait. And we always call it, I have friends who are waiting for that perfect thing. And I call it analysis paralysis. They just continue, they're thinking, and nothing happens. And it's like, and I've released like 10 things and they've been to their one. Like, how do you release like, I don't think there's such thing as perfection. I took the word perfect out of my vocabulary years ago. The word perfect doesn't exist to me. Doesn't exist. But when you say that, I go, yes. And in Hollywood, it's this thing where you're only as good as your last show. You're only as good as your last album. You're only as good as your last. And so that part is fine to me. But the part that gets me is, that's happened to me, of course, when I first started in this business 15 years ago. You'll get 20 amazing comments, Nanette. Oh, you were amazing. I love what you did. Oh my God, it was great. One bad comment. That's the one you remember. Not the 20 that praised your work and you're like, great job. You're the one, wow, he looks fat. Okay, that's the one thing I remember. And seriously, Nanette, that was me when I first started. When I mentor younger people in the business, I'm like, it's a habit. You just literally, because it's speaking to your lower self, right? I mean, it's speaking to you going, I'm fat. That person thinks I'm fat on TV. Okay, it was like, no, but 20 people just said how wonderful you were and a great job you did as a host. And nope, that means nothing. That means nothing. That's so prevalent in the creative process for creatives. And I laugh about it now because I'm a veteran, so to speak, in the business. So we laugh about it. But the early days of going home crying because whatever it said. But that can be transferred anywhere in life where people are telling you great, and then that one person, your father said to you when you were a kid, you'll never make it, and you'll never do it, and that's what you remember. Not that you did a great job.
Yeah.
20 other people.
That's so true. That is so true, and it's to me, it's one of the real barriers spiritually to grow spiritually, because you're never going to be perfect. Even the highest people spiritually are not perfect, and they say that. They say that.
Right.
So it's about, because we're human, and in that process of being human, as we grow, we grow through evolution, lifetime and lifetime. As you grow in doing that, you have to learn. You're learning to not only love yourself, but you're learning to accept the whole life itself. And in accepting that, then you're no longer judgmental about anything. And
it feels better, people. I've done the work. I'm much lighter than I was before. I'm much lighter. I mean, I'm a big guy. I mean, I'm 6'2", but I'm light on my feet, I always say, because I do go with my heart. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. People might try to tell you it's something wrong. You don't go, you should. I try to lead with my heart all the time, because it doesn't mean I'm dumb, or doesn't mean I don't use my brain at all, or you are, but you have to connect them somehow, right? Now, that's the whole point, is connecting the whole picture, the spirit, the heart, the mind, the body, all that, right?
Yeah. Well, I think I have in the book also.
Yeah.
I really believe in working with the mind and the heart at the same time.
Yeah.
The heart is we have two principles. We have the feminine principle and the masculine principle within us. no matter what your sex or your gender or any of that.
Yes,
We
yes.
have both of those principles. The heart is it's really in the East, it's called yin yang. It's not anything to do with gender. So the feminine principle is your inspiration and your creativity. And the masculine principle is taking that and manifesting in the world. So, and you need the balance of the two. I'm sure you know people, like I know a lot of people have great ideas and they never do them.
That's true.
Never do.
Oh, that's true.
Because they have too much of the feminine, they haven't got the masculine to do it. And then, you know, people that have will just do action oriented, do stuff, and don't investigate how to explore, be more creative with it.
Right.
I read years ago in Forbes magazine, I read an article on the difference between female and male managers. And they said that female managers have a tendency to, when you give them a project, they look at all different ways to do that project. But before they decide on what to do, and it takes them a long time, and they look at all the different ways of doing it. And they finally come to a decision. Whereas a male manager takes the project and just does it. Boom, action. This is by the way, when there's too much feminine women and too much masculine men. He said, it'd be wonderful. The two could work together. It's the balance of those two things. And having within you is to be able to, and I have exercised in the book on that, where you start to work on something and think about it with your mind. And then you take that, what you've thought about, and put it in your heart and expand it in your heart. And then you put it back into your mind and process it again and back and forth. And by doing that, you're balancing these two things so that you end up with the best solution. It's not hard to do. And it's interesting to do because people don't ever think they could put something in their heart and let it go and suddenly have a whole new realization coming up.
Right.
Because that's how it works.
That's how it works, people. It does. Nanette, thanks for being on the show. You're a joy and delight. And I like that you're of service to the world. With these books and everything, you're of service to the world. So thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's really fun talking to you.
Yeah, it's good talking to you. Nanette V Hucknall.com is the website. Check out more of her books and what she's talking about even further. And the book is here. It's Higher Self Yoga, practical teaching. Make sure you go get it. I'm telling everybody, get it. You'll love it. I mean, literally, it's, like I said, easy to read, easy to understand, and actual things to work on, actual ways, steps to get there. So I say start here, go to her for more, of course, do that. I'm James Lott Jr. and most of my practice is lottahelp.com. That's with 2 T's, Lott, my last name. I make my last name to everything, so that's just kind of how it works. Thank you everybody so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Can I maybe add to that?
Go ahead, add. Go ahead and add. You can add.
Also go to higherselfyoga.com because we're giving free classes and the awakening the intuition, live from your heart, and the last one is how to connect with your higher self. And they're wonderful classes that anybody can take, and they're free.
Higherselfyoga.com. I'll put that in the description, folks. Yeah. I'll put both in the description so you can go there. Take some free classes. Go ahead and do it, folks. Do it. And again, see you next time.
Okay, thank you.